out, get your whiskey ready. We're
Wish,
going to
go
talk
on.
about this week in wrestling. I don't normally offer this precursor for everyone, but as we are now recording on the 30th of June, I will stress we are not talking about the Raw that took place on the 29th of June. We are talking about the previous Raw because we normally record this on a Sunday. The Raw from the 29th of June we will cover on our usual Sunday podcast in our usual time slot. So that being said, Carl, are you ready to talk this week in wrestling?
I am. And as you said, the fun stops here.
This is where the fun stops.
It is. You are right.
Which is also going in my suggestions for merchandise.
Bring it on. Bring it on. We'll wear it all. We will wear all the merch.
All the merch. I can't. Plain shirt.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm sorry. It's in the wash. My bad.
Okay, so this Raw for this week, which is last week, but we're talking about this week. So this week, the match card consisted of some epic title matches, actually. I say really? Epic because the titles were on the line. The matches themselves, pretty shit.
Oh, okay.
But what we got to see...
Just because we actually saw titles on the line. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
pretty
the bar much. Raw has set.
Yes. So we got to see the tag titles on the line. Finally, the Street Profits were going to settle the score with the Viking Raiders in a match. As crazy as it sounds. Yeah. Believe it or not. Yeah, the Big Show's idea the previous week. We get to see it. The women's title.
I do appreciate the fact that someone had to suggest it to them.
Of course, because fucking hell.
Oh, wrestling, yeah.
The women's title was on the line. We get to see, and this isn't a match we get to see often, except for every week, Asuka versus Charlotte. Yay.
Okay, yeah, yay. I guess.
We get to see the 24/7 title on the line with R-Truth taking on the leader of the ninjas, Akira Tozawa. Because why not? We also get to see Natalya versus Liv Morgan. We get to see the women's tag titles on the line with Bayley and Sasha taking on the Iconics.
I don't mean to digress, but every time you say a title's on the line, you remind me of that film Ready to Rumble with when Titus Sinclair is announcing the cage match, and he's like, the WCW title is on the line, $1 million is on the line, and one man's life is on the line. That's what you remind me of.
Did you also know that the US title was on the line with Apollo Crews
one man's
taking on Shelton Benjamin? So several championships were on the line at this week's Raw. So on paper, you would think that would shape up to be quite the entertaining little affair, wouldn't you?
Well, I reckon if we'd have plucked young Carl from the Attitude Era, dropped him into the modern day, and said, look at this title card, you'd have probably been quite excited at the concept, the prospect of all these title matches. And not necessarily the names, you probably wouldn't have recognised any of them, actually, maybe the Big Show. But the idea that all these titles are online sounds like a stellar card. Where could it go wrong, Carl? Where could it go wrong?
Well, the answer to that question, everywhere. No. That being said, there were some highlights, and in this new format, what we'll do is we'll go through the highlights, and then we'll go through the O'Shites, as aptly named by my esteemed colleague, Anthony here.
Yes, I feel very British when we say it, but yeah, we'll go with the O'Shites, because we are British.
No one else has got it. It's us. It's what we do. So the highlights, Seth Rollins, or as it says in my notes, Seth Rolling. So he cuts a promo.
Rolling.
And do you know what? You've got to give the guy his due. Like, he is really smashing this character. I
agree. It's almost a shame that this character is around when there's not a lot to work with at the minute, because a lot of stars can't be there. There's no audience and nothing. It's a really bad time. So it's such a good gimmick, but he is smashing it, like you say.
It reminds me of like a new take on like the right to censor, almost. Do you know what I mean? But like with Seth Rollins at the helm, and he's obviously, no disrespect to Steven Richards, but I don't know, you just kind of think, well, fucking hell, this guy, he's doing it really well. But it's like right to censor mixed with like fucking Jesus, basically, is the gimmick. But I've got to throw the guy some praise. I thought
I think that's only fair. He's an absolutely strong character, even if Murphy and Austin don't really do a lot other than pad out the numbers for his stable. He is the pivotal character of it all. And it looked a bit ropey at first, don't get me wrong, when they started with all this, and he was, involved Kevin Owens 700 times and Samoa Joe and Viking Raiders and Street Profits and everyone they could throw in the fucking mix. It just felt like chaos. But I feel like they've got a bit of direction now, at least. So fair play to them.
Yeah, definitely. Now this one is an interesting one because it features heavily in the O-shites as well as in the highlights. However, so I'm going to talk about the Asuka and Charlotte match. So it was a highlight for me, and it's by no stretch of the imagination is it the best match we've seen from the pair. But we've seen a couple of matches now, and this one just seemed to be the better of the more recent ones. And it does barely scrape into the highlights, but the fact is they've got really good chemistry. And I was actually shocked to see in this match that we get to see Flair tapped out, which I can't remember the last time she's ever done that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the WWE can be quite guilty of protecting someone too much and booking them too strong. Sometimes she's got to take a loss. And for someone who obviously her signature move, if you will, is the figure eight. It's always good when you see someone who. I'm not going to say she's a submission specialist by any means, but she knows a thing or two about submission holds, so it's nice to see her actually tap. Yeah.
Yeah, defo. So that being said, typical WWE, and I'll come on to it in a bit. They still had to make Charlotte look strong in this, and the reason she submitted, it's like the new Roman, isn't it? Like fucking make Roman look strong, like make Charlotte look strong. Yeah. So she tapped, but there was a reason why, and we'll come on to that when we get to the O-shites in a bit. But the match itself, I thought, was pretty decent overall. So you've got to give credit where it's due.
Indeed.
Then the highlight of the night for me, and it was fantastic, as has been most of his work since he's returned, was the Rated R Superstar Edge. His promo that he cut was just fucking fantastic. He is so good on that microphone. It's crazy, really, because he must be really underrated, because I would never really think, Edge is a great talker. But since he's come back, my God, he makes such a difference to this show.
What I think it is the fact that he's got grit.
You could be onto something.
It's what everybody needs. I'm surprised WWE aren't selling it now.
Yeah, maybe that should go on a t-shirt. He's the Rated R Superstar. Maybe we could do something with the R on there, possibly. Just a little marketing idea. But yeah, fucking hell, right? Like, I give Raw some shit, but like this promo was really, really strong from Edge. And the fact is, he's injured. He's got legitimate tricep injury. He's had surgery. He's going to be out for a couple of months, so it's not ideal. But the fact that he's still getting featured on TV, the fact he's cutting promos as strong as this one was really, really good.
Not to slightly digress, have they given an indication of the recovery time? Because it's usually quite a serious op, isn't it? But have they given an idea?
Yeah,
I've seen the pictures of the op. It look pretty grim.
Yeah, it's meant to be 6 to 9 months, but depending on the person, they can come back in like 4 months or so.
Haven't they been doing a ton with like stem cells and stuff lately as well?
Yeah, So who knows? But
who knows?
Yeah, but Edge, like, he was basically saying like how he's going to kind of embarrass Orton. He's going to make. He put a line in there saying he wished the Cowboy Bob was firing blanks on the night he was conceived.
Fuck,
stuff like that.
That's brutal. Like, that is brutal. That's PG as well. Shit.
But like, it's one of them. Like, it was really, really good and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, but I felt a little bit strange that he seems more pissed off now at the fact that he's been injured and Christian's been injured, and the fact that he fucking twatted his wife. You know what I mean? He seems a little bit more kind of irate now than he ever did, which is similar to the whole how it was with we had the match at WrestleMania where it was anything goes, and then they had a wrestling match, so I felt a little bit like a damn squib afterwards. So the fact he's so annoyed now seems a little bit strange when he just literally fucking like.
I feel like, and don't be wrong, it's difficult to have long-term planning with these things, but like, it feels like they should have had the Christian thing first, and then this time it'd be Beth Phoenix, and then you'd understand the amped up aggression. But I suppose the difficulty is Christian stepped in because of the injury. I don't think it was planned for him to be cannon fodder, as it were. And that's the kind of thing, they're being reactive in some respects to the storyline. But it does feel a bit unusual that he's more annoyed. I mean, I suppose he's had a longer relationship with Christian, so
It's very true, actually. Fuck you, Beth.
You'll never know him like Christian does.
It's like us, isn't it? If something happens to one of our misses, compared to like if something happened to each other, like fucking completely outrageous.
Damn right. Yeah, Randy, leave Carl alone.
Yeah, you fucking dare touch Anthony, I tell you. So you know, all in all, I thought that was really strong. And then the next highlight of the week was another promo segment. This time it was Ric Flair was back to address what had happened with Christian, as well as Orton, and we also got to see Big Show again. So look, Flair's always had good mic work, and you know, by no means is he what he was, but he's still really good on the mic, and he definitely comes across well. Orton
Okay,
as
if
well.
you say so, Carl.
Were you not a fan?
I'm going to precursor this because I'm going to anger people, right? The Ric Flair I saw the most of was the suddenly owning half of WWE Ric Flair, the Evolution Ric Flair and the current Ric Flair. Not so much the TNA because who watches that, but I've never really rated him on the mic in the last few. I'm not going to be unfair to him back in the day, but in the last few decades, I don't think he's been that great on the mic, if I'm honest. Again, purely my opinion. It's all. I'm not saying he never was. I'm not saying he's overrated or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, in the last few decades, he's not really had the mustard, as it were. He's not had the smoke.
fuck the smoke.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think that's fair. You know, he's definitely is shades of his former self, like the old school Ric Flair, and there's no denying that. But I think, unfortunately, someone who isn't even on his best, like a Ric Flair who isn't on his best day, is still, to me, better than most of the talent who get on the mic these days.
I mean, don't get me wrong, he's worth like 100 Otises or a million Rybacks, whatever you want.
Oh, Mandy, my peach. Oh, yeah. Peach.
Mr. Catchphrase. Yeah. That is shockingly good. Shockingly good.
Literally fucking.
You need to be able to do the face now.
No one could do that thing. But yeah, so you know, fair dues. But you know, compared to where we are and the likes of people who we see on the mic, I thought Rick was really good here. Not so much the bit around Charlotte, but which he brought in for no apparent reason. But then the fact that he was talking about what he did with Christian last week and the motivation behind it and stuff, and you know, Orton was kind of reverting back to his best in the world gimmick, with like the Legend Killer gimmick and stuff like that. And then Big Show comes out, and I thought, do you know what? Fair play. It's a good way to transition into something for Orton to do off the back of things now that Edge has been injured. Like Christian was never going to wrestle.
Sorry, did we clarify whether Big Show was face or heel?
I think this time he's face. Who knows? Next week, tune in because you know who knows. But this incarnation we've seen is back being face again. But yeah, I don't know. I think I've always liked Show. He gets a bit of shit, doesn't he? Because let's be honest, he's been there for forever, and for quite a while now, he's been more of a comedy, jokey kind of character. You know, when he was with Kane, like the corporation, people hated him. But you know
I'm hoping to put this the right way, as eloquently as I can. But he's put in a lot of work for a big guy, if that makes sense. Like your giants like that, they usually end up suffering a lot sooner and having much shorter careers. He's put some time in, really. Do you know what I mean?
God, yeah.
His knees must be fucked, right?
Well, you can see they are. You know,
what I mean?
He can get to walk, unfortunately, poor guy. But I don't know. It feels nice. I don't know whether it's like my kind of nostalgia thing kicking in or what, but it feels nice, and it doesn't feel forced necessarily because you know Big Show was there with Christian, he was there with Edge, and he was around that time.
Yeah, it wasn't like as odd or as random as like I'm going to face Drew McIntyre. Like, okay,
yeah,
but were you backstage? We didn't even know.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I don't know. I thought for me it was one of the highlights in quite a poor role.
Yeah.
We also got the tag title match between who was it again? The Iconics, I think it was, taking on Bayley and Sasha.
It was indeed.
Yeah, and it was okay. You know, I'm not going to say the match itself was was anything special, because it wasn't. But the fact that after the match, Sasha was the one to challenge Asuka for Extreme Rules, and I don't know, I was really happy with that. I think it's a turn or a twist that I wasn't expecting in the story, and it sets up something nice that if she was to pull off the inevitable and like beats Asuka for that, then her and Bayley are both the women's champs as well as tag champs, and
it would be
whatever.
a first, and
Definitely.
I think it'd be an interesting one to do because, and plus, it's a bit of a, almost like in kind of a fun way. It's a bit of a fuck you to all these people who are just waiting for them to turn heel. The fact that they're both top of the game on different rosters, so they don't need to challenge each other. I think it'll be interesting. I think it will inevitably go that way. Don't get me wrong, but I quite like the idea. I like it better than like sort of. I don't know. I don't know what they were planning, because there seemed to be a suggestion with Charlotte holding up the belt the other week. They seem to have definitely fucked Shayna Baszler off. I don't want to see Nia in the title scene again. So it's nice to see they're doing something with it that I can get behind, in all fairness. So I'm amped for that. Be good.
Well, that's it. I'm like a massive Sasha fan, to be fair. Like, I know what she's in at the minute with Bayley isn't exactly great, and that's mainly because of Bayley. And again, that's just because Bayley can't play a heel. Like, so that's why it's not good. But yeah, I don't know. I'm quite interested to see Sasha back where she belongs in like the main event scene, and whether or not she gets it. If she does, then great. That's a whole new dynamic. If she doesn't, then you've got to think that the whole turn on Bayley's going to come sometime soon as well. So I'm actually quite excited to see what happens.
Do you think, because there's been a suggestion, not to digress from Raw, but do you think there will be a possibility that they're not going to go full throttle with this, and Bayley's actually going to screw Sasha over for the win?
Essentially, I think it can go either one or two ways, really. Either they do go, fucking Sasha, you can have it for a bit, which is more of a shock, I think. But if
I
you
would
don't,
prefer that.
I definitely think Bayley's going to get involved somehow, and then that's where it all starts to combust, I think.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, interesting. We also get to see MVP do some decent mic work. I'm going to hold my hands up. It was actually decent.
Don't believe you. Bullshit.
I know, right? I don't believe myself, but it was all right. So
we know from his original run in the WWE that he's capable.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about him coming back this time, but I've just not been on board with it at all. But we certainly know he's capable, because we saw him in, again, I think Reality Era MVP was a more enjoyable MVP. So, yeah, it's not that surprising, just surprising so far with his run.
Yeah, defo. And I think, to be fair, that this is one of the better promos, if not the best, he's done since he's come back. Talking about how, Cruz, he wants to manage him and help him navigate his business decisions because he keeps putting the title on the line and stuff like that. And we go on to then get the match where Cruz has a rematch with Benjamin from last week, but beats him clean this time. MVP's obviously out there to applaud him after the match, and then Lashley takes him out. So I don't know, a bit of an interesting one this as well. Like, I know it's in the highlights because overall I thought it was fine. But it seems strange that MVP's whole sales pitch is, I got Bobby Lashley from being a nobody to get him to the main event, fucking challenger for the world title, and now he's going after the US title. So it's a bit like...
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the plan was there anyway, because it seems, because of the way Drew won, it seemed like they weren't done with that feud, but apparently they fucking are. At the end of that one, which I'm not against, but it just, the way they give Drew the win, not as solid as it has been with the likes of Brock even. It just felt like they were coming back to that, and apparently not. Apparently we're done.
Yeah, seems like a bit of a shift, and not necessarily for the better.
I know we've got some exciting stuff coming up. I mean, I'm properly excited for the main title on Raw. I mean, such legends involved now. I'll let you ruminate on that.
The final positive of the week, and I do struggle to call this a positive, but the closing promo of the night was a bit of a damn squib, to be fair. It was Rey Mysterio and Dominic coming out to address, obviously, the actions of Rollins.
I know you've not been overly keen on Rey on the mic lately. So
no, not at all. He sucked balls again, He was so fucking bad. It's cringeworthy. I really hate the fact where he's like, I'm going to speak English, and then I'm going to throw some Spanish words in here for no reason. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, just don't do that. he's such a bad promo. And you know what? I'm not even over on Dominic either, but Rollins was great again. Again, it sounds like, why have I put this in the highlights? Because also Humberto and Black come down and get involved in this again. And I'm not big on
they're a team now.
Exactly. So that just seems weird. It's just too many people in the angle always on Raw. whether it was Kevin Owens and the whole fucking posse, or now with this one, there's just so many fucking people all involved in one thing. But I really like the idea of, there was a point in there towards the end where they had hold of Dominic and they had hold of Ray, and it looked like Seth was going to do to Dominic what he did to Ray, and Ray was going to watch on to do it, but he had to kind of retreat at the last minute. But I thought that was a kind of like, I don't know whether it's just like plugging at me heartstrings as a father, but like I kind of, you could empathise then, couldn't you? You could be like,
I can see you now, whiskey in hand, screaming at the TV.
Oh no, he's onto me. You got cameras in my house?
Always.
You didn't catch the wailing afterwards, right? No, that's fine. Okay, so that's the highlights done. Now for the shites. So we talked about the main event scene, didn't we?
Hang on. I'm gonna need this.
There you go. Yeah. Just keep going all the way through this segment, I think. So we talked about the main event scene, and obviously Bobby Lashley. We thought, fair dues, this guy's going to still be going, whether we liked it or not. It kind of made sense. No, we get a new challenger, and not one that you would expect. It's Dolph Ziggler, obviously. Because why wouldn't it be?
Because if you had to make bets on that, you would have guessed Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah,
a man
100%.
who was nowhere near the main title scene of SmackDown is just going to come along and just come right to the top of Raw.
Absolutely. And he comes out and he's like, yeah, so basically you guys traded AJ Styles for me and Robert Roode.
Apparently. But don't worry, because we're not going to put him on this show either.
Yeah, 100%, right?
Nice one, Bobby.
It's just like, okay, whatever. But then he comes out and goes to Drew. And basically, they're trying to do this weird little redemption arc because, Dolph's trying to make out like the only reason Drew is the champion is because of Dolph. What? This doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, I mean, really? Considering how long Dolph's been on SmackDown and has had nothing to do with his run up to the title. I know, obviously, he was on Raw with him like very early on, but I know they've had some success with playing off history with Drew, and I think this is probably potentially, I don't want to say it, Carl, but this potentially could be the downfall for his run with the title, because they're now clambering to find reasons that there's history. Do you know what I mean? Like, originally, he left the WWE, he learned, he come back, and he's had that redemption. Then I was even on board when he had the match with Corbin because there was a bit of history there. I really wanted him versus Jinder because there was history there. So I'm all for it, but this feels a little bit forced. Like,
clutching at fucking straws is what this is. Like, literally. But it doesn't make any sense. And
what's next? Like, you cut in line at me in Starbucks. I want a match.
Maybe, that is entirely possible. And that's just going to be him and MVP, probably. But anyway, so yeah, that was a load of shite. Speaking of shite, Nia Jax, again, why is she on our screens? Cuts another promo, attempts to, and then R-Truth comes out halfway through and basically does this weird little like shtick where he thinks, is Nia actually Akira Tozawa? What?
Okay.
Right? Because ninjas are masters of disguise. So that was his thought process. Okay. Then the ninjas show up.
And I get that the masters of disguise, but why Nia?
Who fucking knows, right?
I can get on board with most any R-Truth thing. He's been a comic character for a long time, and I love it when he does stupid things, like when he comes out, like thinking it's a ladder match when it's not, and shit like that, which he's done in the past. That amuses me. But this kind of stuff is like, it needs to be rooted somewhere. Like, even just some sort of subtle hint that she might, as stupid as it sounds, that it's something that might have led that thought process, so he's not just random as fuck. But, okay,
just fucking mental. But it was all just used as a fucking precursor to Charlotte coming out. Goes on to say that like Nia dropped the ball on her last two opportunities, blah blah blah, and then set up like this little injury angle where, as I mentioned before, Charlotte gets a sore shoulder, which is why she tapped out, which is why she's off, blah 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 blah. So yeah, convoluted, and just that whole segment made zero sense. It was bullshit. Speaking of bullshit, another low light. Fucking Street Profits and Viking Raiders.
I'm loving your segues, man. I love it.
Fucking God. Fuck you. You did not love it.
Did you not? Did you not? Honestly, Carl, did you not even find it the slightest bit funny, right? When I'm going to say Eric cartwheeled and then the other fella cartwheeled and then they all started cartwheeling and trying to outdo each other. Did you not even find that the slightest bit funny? Because I did.
No, I didn't. I was like, I was like, why is this on my screen again? Like, I thought this was going to be the fucking end of it, and hopefully it is.
I love the fact that this didn't even like it just devolved into them still just trying to outdo each other with just stupid stuff. Like I don't know, it tickled me this one. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the match.
I don't know. I'm just not a fan of anything that they do. So I literally hope the pair of them just move the fuck on now.
Carl,
But
you need to get the smoke. That'll help.
fucking smoke you in a minute, right? But yeah, like the thing that annoys me about it as well, the match itself was lackluster as fuck. For the amount of weeks we've had to sit through this, how many weeks has it been? Like 10 weeks? 12 weeks? I've lost count. How many little fucking things have they had? Little competitions? However long it's
Oh,
been,
tons.
right?
Yeah, we've had loads.
Right. And then they have like what was it, a fucking 20-minute match, if that, and it was shit. It was a shit match. So, and then we have fucking Andrade and Garza, who apparently, I thought they'd broken up last week. They're now back as a tag team again, and they're now trying to get involved in the tag scene. All right, whatever.
We don't know what we want.
Exactly. And then R-Truth, after that fucking crazy shit, he's now going to have a fight with Tozawa. Lashley comes down, kills all the ninjas, puts a full Nelson on Truth, and then Tozawa capitalizes on it and pins him with his little weird, like crazy Japanese ninja gimmick that he's got now.
Here's the thing with the 24/7 title. Lashley clearly dominated everyone there. Why didn't he just take the title? Why has the title got no respect at all to the point that Lashley, who doesn't hold any title, not interested?
Well, that's
this
it.
is what that's what makes the title fucking stupid.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, the thing that makes it fucking stupid is last week, Truth was like, "Yeah, I've managed to negotiate my title not being on the line. It's a 24/7 title, you bellend." But anyway,
even if that was, do you know what, that tickled me, but I don't think it was an intentional joke because he's gone to negotiate something and talked out the one title that's always on the line. Tickled me, but I don't think that was a deliberate joke. I really don't.
No. I just think I don't think they know what they want to do with it. I think they've probably been getting pressure, or a lot of people saying like, "How good was the hardcore title? We used to get like fucking, it was on the line all the time. It was exciting, in this day and age of social media." So they probably went, "Okay, yeah, we'll do something with that." I've done fuck all with it, and it's just pointless.
But I think because we had this a couple of times as well, like they are very inconsistent. And who was that guy who had it, and no one gave a shit who he was? Do you remember that guy? The one, but he won it off Truth and then lost it off Truth as well. He was a name you hardly ever hear. I want to say he was NXT. Anyway, that guy held it, and he was having matches, and they were like, "Oh, the title's not on the line for this match." I was like, "Why?" Like, that doesn't make any sense. It may be a match in the ring for once, but why is the title? The title's always on the line.
Yeah,
that should always be the thing. It doesn't matter what match you're in, what type of match you're in. If you eat the pin, you lose the title. They could be creative with it in that sense. They could have like the 24/7 champ in a tag match, and because he was the one who ate the pin, he lost the belt as well. They could try and do clever things with it, but no,
literally, like the idea you had about the Royal Rumble, where the fucking champ goes in there and everyone just stops and goes, "Fuck you, I'm having your belt." Like that would have been amazing.
Turns into everyone just randomly, because that title could have changed on 4 or 5 times for me in the Rumble. Would have tickled me.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a fucking fantastic idea. They need to do that at this year's Royal Rumble that comes up, because
you see, this is the problem though, because R-Truth will come out into the Rumble and no one will want his title, because for some reason it's only R-Truth and random people who we don't give a shit about who seems to want it. If it was actually desired, and the likes of Bobby Lashley or MVP or any of the Street Profits or anyone who's a singles competitor, Dolph Ziggler even, were actually interested in the title, then it seemed viable when you can do something like that. But I can very much envisage him coming out in the Royal Rumble and he could just fucking lie down and go pin me, and everyone will go, "Nah, I'm all right."
Yeah, no one cares. And that's the same way I feel about that segment. Speaking of segments no one cares about, we then get Natalya cutting a promo. She's a heel now, apparently. Saying,
but it's fine because that's done and dusted now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, we're not going to see her again, so this was pointless. So Natalya comes out, was like, "Yeah, Becky's on diaper duty and the Queen is shelved. The women's division needs her leadership." So what? She's being Seth now, but for the women, okay. Basically,
the heel run doesn't make any sense at all, because she was like, she's sort of dismissing Becky in a sense, not as aggressively as Shayna, but she was trying to defend the miracle that is motherhood and all this to Shayna
Yeah.
Baszler, and now she's sort of like passing on. Oh, she's on diaper duty. And it's like,
Exactly.
okay,
Doesn't make any sense
That's like
at
Big
all.
Show levels of sudden bad guy.
Yeah, like literally, it's bad, real bad.
Mm.
But she goes out and has a match with Liv, and comes down to the ring with Lana, because I think I mentioned last week, it seemed like they were going to go that direction. That's exactly what they've done. And wouldn't you have guessed it, Lana causes the distraction, costing Liv the match. I don't know. Like Liv's improved loads in the ring. I don't know what they're doing with the character. I'm quite over
They
with
don't.
it. But like,
They don't know what they're doing.
unfortunately, it's getting to a point every week now where I'm just like, well, I don't care, because I just know it's going to be like a stupid loss and a stupid like, I'm finding myself, I'm good, and I don't know. It's a shame really, because she's getting so good in the ring. I'm just starting to lose interest.
I'll tell you what's going to happen, Carl, and it pisses me off already. But I'm going to put money on this happening. I'll go as far as eating my hat if this doesn't happen, Carl. Right? And that is that after 700 matches with the Riot Squad, where she was coming out on her own because she's found herself or whatever, they're going to put her and Ruby Riot back together. That's what's going to fucking happen. And we're going to have a tag team, not a full Riot Squad because Sarah Logan's retired now, but they're going to have them two as a tag team and totally negate all that fucking redemption, I'm a decent solo competitor shite that they did, which is a shame because I was getting behind Liv at that point. But, she's ate the loss here. They don't know what to do with it, and they're going to put her in a tag scene, so there's actually a tag scene. That's what's going to happen.
Well, I fucking hope not. But anyway, so yeah, that was Raw, and I can't bring myself to give it anything higher than a 1.5, because the Edge promo was great. There's one or two other bits which were, passable. Mostly on the whole, it was shite. So
yeah, I'm mostly with you because of that amazing Street Profits versus Viking Raiders match. I'm going to give it a 2.
Why?
Because it was good. It was a good match. There was good humor in it. Let it go, Carl. Yeah, we're going to sit in this awkward silence, and we're all going to sit in it
there silently. Yeah, that's it.
Fine. No, I'm sticking with the 2 though, mate. It was I'm largely with you on Raw. It was probably the weakest show of the week, which is a shame for the flagship show to be the weakest show of the week. But once again, that seems to be the case.
I was going to say, it's becoming consistent now, isn't it? Which is a shame.
It certainly is. So we'll move on to brighter endeavours, Carl. We'll move on to NXT. So NXT this week consisted of a few good matches, a few bad matches, some highlights, and some shites, as any show does. We start out with Cameron Grimes versus Damian Priest for some reason. So I'll format it slightly different, Carl, because it's just the way my head works. We saw Cameron Grimes taking a win on that one. And Damian Priest weirdly, and I'll mention it further in the highlights, but weirdly playing the face, even though he's not one. Okay. We then have a match between Jake Atlas and the newly renamed Santos Escobar, or El Hijo del Fantasma. Obviously, Escobar took the win, and to be fair, rightly so. And it's a good direction they're going, as far as I'm concerned, with Escobar. We then saw Katie Carter, Katie, what the hell? Sorry, Caden Carter and Casey Catanzaro versus Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. We saw Dakota Kai and Gonzalez take the win, and again, I'll cover it a little bit further on, but a little promising hint from the commentators during this match. But again, good match, good result. We then move on to Karrion Kross versus Bronson Reed. Karrion Kross took the win. Bronson Reed, I'll be honest, I'm not overly sold on this guy, but just the sheer size of him makes Karrion Kross look like a beast the way he ragdolls him around the ring. So again, another really good match. We then had Aaliyah versus Rhea Ripley. Nope, not a good match at all. We're happy. We'll talk about that. We saw Rhea Ripley take the win, as again you'd expect. Probably the right result in that sense, but the way it was put together just pissed me off a little bit. We had your favourite, Carl, and I'm sure many others. We had Dexter Lumis going up against Roderick Strong. Dexter Lumis technically took the win through shenanigans, let's say. And then we end the night, Carl. Keith Lee, Finn Balor and Johnny Gargano for the North American title to go on to face Adam Cole. And we saw Keith Lee take the win. And I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that. I'll talk about my highlights and shouts before we talk a little bit further, but I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that because I was quite happy with that. I was quite happy with that result. So as far as highlights go, Carl, I mentioned Escobar. Now, this was a nothing match. This was designed for a squash, you know what I mean? Sadly for Jake Atlas. It wasn't a squash, you know, he didn't look stupid. It wasn't like Sheamus beating up developmental talent kind of squash. It just proved to provide Escobar and his cronies to be dominant. And I'm quite keen on the way they're setting these up as heels in the NXT division. I like the way they put it together, and I like where they're heading because it looks like they're heading towards this ongoing feud with Drake Maverick. The whole setup, I'm quite on board with. I don't know how you feel about Escobar so far, Carl, but I'm actually quite on board with the character shift. I didn't have enough time with Phantasma to really get attached, but I like where they're going with it in terms of building up a good heel stable.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely came as a shock, the whole kind of, okay, I'm this guy now. But the fact is, I couldn't pronounce the last guy's name, so at least this one, you know, I'm a little bit more on board with. But yeah, I don't know. I think I don't really miss the whole Phantasma gimmick. I think this one seems much more him, and it's definitely like a decent heel presence, which I think that is much needed at the minute. So yeah, I'm on board with it.
Awesome. So the other highlight is kind of a negative as well, but I'll explain why it's a negative. But the highlight element on the Dakota Kai match with Raquel Gonzalez was during the match. The commentator suggested that the Dakota Kai and Gonzalez are putting the tag team division on notice, and that got me. I was there like, yes, because they work really well together. Gonzalez is a beast. That one-arm powerbomb makes her look like an absolute monster in the ring. I'd love to see them in the tag team division. And as we know, the women's tag team titles are defended on any show, so it's perfectly viable. And I was all on board for that. And then the negative, which I don't mean to jump straight into, but I have to mention it because we're talking about it. The negative being Dakota Kai then cuts a little bit of a promo in which she's saying that she's going to go for Io Shirai and she's going to go for the NXT women's title. And Gonzalez is just like, yeah, here's your women's champ here. It's like, you could probably squash her with your bare hands. So I wasn't on board with the sudden shift. I preferred what the commentators were getting at, and I hope that they do consider that. They're looking for decent women's tag teams, and these are one right here that they've set up almost organically. So again, a highlight in that sense, but I really hope that they don't go the other direction. Seems like they will. I really hope they don't. What do you make of them as a tag team, Carl? Because I'm quite taken on the sort of, I know it's a bit of a classic shtick, but you know, Dakota Kai's the brains and Gonzalez is the muscle kind of thing. But I think they work really well together, and I'm actually keen to see them in the tag division.
Yeah, I think it's something different, which the division doesn't have at the minute. And as you've said, you know, there's not exactly a shitload of women's tag, you know, teams at the minute in NXT. And the fact you've got, you know, Sasha Banks and Bayley going from every show and stuff like that and challenging, I think it's definitely an opportunity to make some new tag teams if they're going to invest in the division. And this one seems as good as any that I've seen so far as a potential kind of team. So it is a bit of a shame to see Dakota Kai go, you know what? Nah.
Yeah.
Seems like a bit of a waste.
But time will tell. You know what WWE like, they will flip-flop as well, so you never know. And then the last highlight, again, I touched on it, and there's not much more to say on it, but was Karrion Kross. I don't know what it is. Well, I do know what it is about him. The booking him like a badass, but I'm so hyped with it all. You know, is Mrs. Scarlett? It's Scarlett, isn't it? Bordeaux.
Bordeaux.
She's a fantastic hype woman, as it were. You know, her coming out beforehand and building up his theme music and really amping him coming out. That alone gets you like, yeah. Doesn't even matter who comes out. You know what I mean? But then you've got Karrion coming out, and to be fair, he's not like you. All due respect to him, he's jacked and he probably tower over me, but he's not coming out looking like the Big Show where he's like a freak of nature. Do you know what I mean? But he looks like a beast, and then he comes out and he goes up against Bronson Reed, who is like 300 and odd pounds, and he's just throwing him, and it's just impressive to watch, to the point that, you know, this did nothing for Bronson. No offense to Bronson, but there was a point when he did a move, because I'm great with these moves, where he lifted Carrion for a slam, and he struggled to lift him, and I'm like, he looked like he was struggling more than Carrion was struggling, and it's meant to, aesthetically, it looks the other way around. Do you know what I mean? Like, you go and fucking hell, Carrion can just throw him around. That's crazy. But Bronson seemed to be struggling to keep up with Carrion as far as I'm concerned when it comes to pacing, and it did
Do you know
nothing
what?
for Bronson.
Slightly,
but Carrion is a beast.
Slightly off topic a little bit as well. I feel that way sometimes with Brian Cage. Look at the size of him; he's a fucking beast. Sometimes he looks like he's fucking struggling in there to pick someone up. So yeah, it's a crazy one. But I think Carrion, they've definitely done a great job of bringing him in and making him look like a star. Like I didn't follow TNA at this point; I didn't know who he was, and then to bring him in and to kind of have that kind of gimmick with Scarlett and the way he is, he looks menacing, he looks powerful. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I mean, they still sort of touch on potential going for the NXT title or going for Adam Cole in some way, but they seem to have sort of sidelined that for a little bit. But I don't really mind because we've got more time to build him up, and it's not saying he's not done with him. He's just going to we're going to get this title versus title thing out of the way, and then I still think he's probably going to interrupt whoever wins. He's probably going to turn up at the end of it or something like that, to be honest with you. But yeah, a great match, and I think they're building them really well. And I don't know if Scarlett is actually there as an in-ring competitor, but even just what she's doing there as his valet and his hype man, fantastic. Yeah, thoroughly enjoying the pair of them. Moving on to the O'Shites, Carl. I'm afraid your man Dexter Lumis is in the O'Shites this week.
Oh no!
But it's purely because he doesn't do much. Like, the match did not really happen because of shenanigans, and he ends up getting basically Strong didn't want to get in the ring. He was petrified of him, and I get what they're going for in some senses, but you don't get to see any example of what Dexter Lumis is actually like in the ring. And I believe he's a good wrestler, but I've not seen it. And yeah, he sort of gets the count out because he was too afraid to actually compete with him. And then Lumis, he comes out looking beastie because I think he chokes out, was it Fish who was with him? Undisputed Era people. And I don't know, I'm just not overly thrilled on the fact that we're not really seeing a lot of matches with Lumis at the minute, and I don't know what to think of him other than being a bit weird. I don't know how you feel about that, Carl, because I know you're a fan, but what have we seen of him in the ring really that gets you behind him as a wrestler? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, there's been a couple of times over the last few weeks where he's had a few squash matches, and he's looked pretty strong. I think they've tried to do a bit more character work with him. I think with the whole drawing that he does, and the whole he looks like a fucking psychopath. I don't want to get in the ring, stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't
know. I might just be being a bit unfair on him. I think it's just because it's been character work and very quick squash matches. I don't know if he can go in the ring. Like, that's something I still don't know yet. I need to see him have a really good match, like a one that lasts more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think I don't know why they're not booking him in long matches, but I think they were doing the kind of squash, kind of quick matches with him, and then now that they're doing that with Carrion quite a bit as well, I feel like they're probably going, well, we don't want to do another squash match with Dexter, so we'll just do something else and try and shake it up.
Look at that. But, well, you're fully prepared with this fucking defense. I didn't even tell you what I was going to say. Fine. I mean, next O'Shite was the whole Rhea Ripley thing. I don't know what direction they're giving Rhea Ripley now. She had an interaction with Robert Stone at the beginning of the night. He was, again, it just makes it seem like a bit of a dick because he come along and he's like, he's a bit of pompous in the way he talks and stuff, but he was like, I'm giving you an opportunity, a golden ticket to still sign with the Robert Stone brand. That's all he did. And she was like, I'm going to throw you in a dumpster. It's like almost an overreaction really to someone offering you something, whether you wanted it or not. I don't know. But again, she had this match with Aaliyah, and it was like that had no benefit because Aaliyah took the loss. So I don't know where they're going with the Robert Stone stuff because her signing with him hasn't helped. So Rhea's still looking good. She's still squashing people, but she's not going for the title. She's not in the title scene. They took that off her for some reason. And I feel like she's got no direction in NXT at the minute. She's just kind of there, which is disappointing. I don't know how you feel about that, Carl, but I was just underwhelmed with the whole thing. It doesn't seem like it's going to go anywhere. So
yeah, I mean, it's quite the come down for Rhea Ripley, isn't it? From being WrestleMania against Charlotte to just have a know nothing match on NXT and with no direction. I think the whole Aliyah thing with
Is it Aliyah? I keep saying Aliyah.
It could be Aliyah. I don't know. Either or. The Egyptian lady. Yeah, with Robert Stone. I don't know. It's got the potential for something. I just think if it goes the same way as his last clients have gone, then I don't know. Is this going to be the kind of straw that breaks the camel's back with him? And there's something off the back of this. Whereas like whenever someone else leaves him, he just kind of gets upset for a bit and then tries to recruit someone else. So I feel like they're building to something. Just don't know what it is.
I think it just threw me a little bit because I was expecting Aliyah to get the win, but not like through shenanigans like Robert would cause a distraction or something like that. I didn't think they'd book Rhea to look weak, but they didn't. They just made everyone look weak. Do you know what I mean? Like it didn't really do anything for Rhea taking the win, and it didn't do anything for Aliyah. Didn't do anything with the story with Robert Stone. Sorry, I keep going to say Robert Strong. Yeah, and I don't know. It just the whole thing kind of fell flat for me. And then the last shite I've got is not a big one. I just found it odd. We started the night with Cameron Grimes being a dick, who I don't know if he was necessarily the one who injured him, but it certainly seems to suggest that way. But he pointed out that Damian Priest was back there all injured or whatever, and it goes over to Damian Priest, who's been, I don't know if he had his arm slammed in the car, or he's basically half lying out of his car all injured and shit. And that was leading on to their match where Damian was having the match with Cameron Grimes, but with an injury. So Grimes inevitably took the win, but only because of the injury sustained. So they're obviously building that storyline up there. But what I don't get, and the reason it's on me shite, is because that whole bit, that beginning segment, that was us meant to be behind Damian as the underdog and as the face. At no point has he turned face. They've just gone, well, look at that, he's fighting injured. God bless him. Like, it just seems out of nowhere because he's literally just come off. He attacked Finn Balor in the locker room and revealed himself as the attacker and was the big bad guy. That went nowhere, and now he's playing face to Cameron Grimes, and I don't. It just feels like very random, I suppose. So again, not a major one. It played out as it should, but it just seemed a bit unusual to put Priest in the. I think he's a better heel than Grimes as well. Grimes is just a bit more of a tit than a heel. And I don't mean, I'm not being disrespectful to him that like, as his character. Do you know what I mean? That's just the way he comes across. He's not a bad guy. He's just a bit obnoxious as far as I can see. Whereas Priest seems almost like legitimate, like a threat as a heel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what you thought of the match, Carl, but I just found it a bit strange.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, it felt like a little bit of a nothing match for me, to be honest. You could see why it was the opener.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing. I'm picking on an opener, so, it's not the worst thing in the world. But overall, Carl, there's some good matches on the card there. The triple threat in particular, really good match. I was more than happy with the results. And sorry, we did mean to go back to that because I wanted your opinion on it. More than happy with the results of it being Keith Lee. I think he played so well to them too. Like Gargano and Balor are kind of similar in style. So for me, Keith was the main element making this really good because I think the match might have been a little bit more. They're both good in the ring, don't get me wrong, but I think it might have been a bit boring had it just been Balor versus Gargano. Keith added something to that because he's a big fella, but he can still go and he can almost sort of not keep up with them per se, but he's surprisingly nimble on his feet. And yeah, he added something great to that match, and I was very happy to see him get the win and go into that title scene. We could now see potentially Keith Lee coming away with all the gold, and that prospect I think is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was quite happy with the outcome. I don't think Balor's done enough or been like present enough to earn it, and I think Johnny Gargano for a while now, I fundamentally disagree with him being a heel. He's just not a very good one, in my opinion. So didn't make any sense. And Adam Cole's technically a bit of a heel as well. So what are we working with here? We would have worked with Gargano like heel versus heel. Wouldn't have been great.
That's a fair point.
For me, it was the outcome that we wanted.
Yeah, you end up in the classic because I think Keith Lee in the triple threat was the only face there, but you've weirdly ended up with that classic face versus heel match, and you can properly see the crowd, albeit at home, getting behind Keith. You know what I mean? It's I'm all for him winning the belt because I think Adam Cole's served his time now. I think he needs to either move to the main roster or move on up to something else. I don't know. I don't think he's got much more to offer NXT, if I'm honest with you. And that's not a discredit to him. I just think he's ready to move on.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him rock up on Raw and add a bit of, and I say Raw specifically because they're needing that shot in the arm at the minute. So yeah, I'd love to see him rock up on Raw. But yeah, more than happy with that triple threat anyway. Overall for me, Carl, I'm giving that week a 3.
Okay. I went slightly more conservative as I did with Raw. The 2.5, middle of the road for me. I thought there was a couple of matches in there which were really good. The main event especially stood out. But yeah, there was some of the stuff that just didn't really land with me. So for me, it was just a bit of a middle of the show, middle of the road kind of show.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's I don't know. I had a few weeks where I weren't too happy with NXT, and then it really picked up. So I suppose it's a bit of a drop to what they've been doing the last few weeks. But yeah, I'd take your point on that. But that overall, mate, that's NXT for the week.
Okay, now to the Superior Wednesday night show. Not that I'm biased in any way, shape, or form.
No, you wouldn't be biased. Independent.
But we had quite the card this week. So we had a lumberjack match, Wardlow versus Luchasaurus.
Oh, you were marking out for that, weren't you?
Call this.
Oh yeah, you were, and you must have, honestly. I think you had the tissues next to you for this match, mate.
You'd love to see it. It was yeah, things were shed. That's all I'll say. Shida versus Red Velvet. Okay, interesting. No idea who that was, but we saw that. We had a press conference, very similar to what you would see in the MMA world. With
yeah, it was very, very MMA styled, wasn't it?
Yeah, with Cody versus Jake Hager in the press conference. We got to see Brody Lee team up with Colt Cabana, further in their kind of Dark Order storyline, taking on Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss, further in their kind of romancy kind of storyline that they've got going on. Another tag team match, we got to see FTR versus SCU.
The battle of the acronyms.
The battle of the acronyms. We got to see Brian Cage take on a jobber known as John Cruz. Wonder how that one went. We got to see, unfortunately with Sammy being put on the leave of absence, we didn't get to see Sammy take on Matt Hardy this week. It was actually Santana who took on Matt Hardy. And then the event ended with a face-off between Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy. So much joy to be taken by all. So the highlights, of which there are several. So I think last week was the first time we went to this format. I don't think there was like any lowlights, but there are actually O-shites. But there are actually quite a few O-shites this week. But the highlights, so we had Wardlow taking on Luchasaurus. No surprise here. God, was I ready, and boy did this deliver. Loved it. It's not your typical, slow-ass, sluggish big man match. It wasn't a Big Show versus Undertaker, Big Show versus Kane, where it was just slow and, not a lot happened. This was action-packed. The guys can both go in the ring, high-flying stuff, technical stuff. They had everything. They went outside the ring. They fought on the stage. It was just great. It told a really good story as well, and it was just an excellent way to kick off the show. And yeah, I loved it. To be honest, I thought they should have saved it for like a pay-per-view, if I'm honest. I know we are going to have the tag match at the pay-per-view, but this match in its own right stands out as like it's not something AEW has a lot of. So they've got more now as time's gone on. So obviously Wardlow, Luchasaurus.
Yeah, I think when you originally said it, we had a lot less. They seemed to increase suddenly after you said that.
Well, exactly. They got Archer, they got Brody Lee. So, the big guys are growing. But for me, this was the pairing I always wanted to see. And, it definitely delivered for me this week.
I think I know what you're saying. Like, it feels like it should have been saved for pay-per-view. But I actually, it's one thing I do love about AEW, that you tune in every week thinking that you could get a big money match because they're not afraid to put a massive match on.
Yeah.
And
I love as well, it's always they always start the show with a match, and it's always a killer match. Whereas WWE always starts the show with a promo, and it can be very hit and miss.
Yeah,
so
I think WWE's approach is start low, and then it can only get better. Whereas I think AEW do like to set the bar and go, now you're hyped.
Yeah,
because that's what you do. You watch it, you get a fucking brilliant opener like that, and then you just hyped for the rest of the night. Then.
Yeah, definitely. But it definitely delivered. It was really, really good. Obviously, the Lumberjacks played a good part in it as well. It added a bit of extra spice to it, so that was good. The next highlight, so we had Hikaru Shida taking on Red Velvet. So on the way to the ring, Penelope Ford was in the audience and ended up slapping Shida. So Shida gets a bit pissed off by this, goes on to absolutely
slapped the
squash Red
Shida out of
Velvet.
her.
Slapped the Shida out of her. And then she absolutely squashes this Velvet girl and then basically helps the barricade and batters Penelope Ford. But yeah, I don't know. This was needed, I think, because it made Shida look really strong and compelling as a champion. And it also furthered their feud, as you know, instead of just kind of she had a pin over her 1 week to okay, now there's a bit of animosity there. So I think it did the job to kind of further that a little bit. Next, we had the Cody and Jake Hager press conference. Now, this had a lot of good bits, but also some bad bits as well. But mostly, it was a highlight for me. So I liked the fact I mentioned before it was very MMA style. They had like Pro Wrestling Illustrated there. They had the media there, the journalists, and that added a bit of extra kind of, I don't know, just like reality to it. I really liked when Hager did decide to show up. He was very Hager. He was just wanted to show up, get the photos done, get out of there. You know, I really like the fact that he did his like MMA, like putting his fist in Cody's face pose, and like the little scuffle that happened after it and stuff. But there were also some negatives, and you know, I'll come on to them when I go through the shites. But
I know you've been a fan of this slight blend of like pulling in certain elements, like the tail of the tape. You're always a fan of as well.
Yeah.
So, and I can see why it adds that. I don't even know what you call it. It just adds something to the whole thing, doesn't it? Makes it feel a little more serious, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, it's something a little bit different to a contract signing, because I've never understood what the contract signing was doing, because they don't, like, 1 minute they just have, oh, we've had this match made for you, you're having it, and then the other time it's like, okay, well, we want to do this match, but you've got to sign the contract first.
Yeah, I think we've both spoke in the past many a time on how much we hate the concept of a contract signing. They're fucking stupid. But you know what? What's better than one contract signing? Two.
Maybe two?
Two in one night. Two simultaneously, Carl. But we'll never see that. That's just too wild. We'll never see that.
Surely that will never happen. You know, if that happens, that is the day of wrestling, because, you know, it's died, basically.
That's wrestling history right there.
Yeah.
Like, who will ever forget the day they've done a double contract signing like that?
Well, exactly. You know, imagine how far in the future that'd be.
We've yet to see it, Carl, and I just don't know when we will. Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? So there are some negatives, which I'll come on to in a little bit, but mostly I quite enjoyed it. Then we get the battle of the acronyms of FTR versus SCU, and again,
and it was OMG, WTF.
It was
LOL.
OMG, WTF, MP3, DVD, you name it, right?
Are you going to get it on DVD?
Yeah,
or maybe AVI.
Yeah, AVI, MP4, something like that. But yeah, so this was another kind of tag clinic, and everything that FTR touch in the tag division, it ends up being a clinic. Like, these guys are old school tag team wrestlers. They know the stuff. SCU can hold their own. You've got two seasoned veterans in there. It wasn't Scorpio, it was Daniels and Kazarian.
It's always nice to see Daniels in the mix sometimes, because he sort of takes more of a valet role quite a lot. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know, he's a vet, and he's been in it for years, and he's so good. And it was, you know, this was a great match. And you know, I'm not going to make any bones about it. I'm not a huge fan of tag wrestling. I've got nothing against it. I'm just more of a singles kind of fan, I guess. But
I mean, let's be honest. In the last few decades, there's not been a lot to get you enthused about tag wrestling either, has there?
Well, that's it. I mean, you had obviously the golden era of like the Hardys, Edge and Christian, the Dudleys, like together, and they were like the core tag team division for me. Like they broke the mold of the TLC and stuff like that, and that was when tag team wrestling was exciting. But yeah, I don't know, like Legion of Doom, like the Rockers, you know, fucking all those kind of guys from back in the day. Yeah, I mean they were fine, but I was never like, it was never my favorite. And I think you know, today again it's good. Like, the quality's good, but it's not going to be my favorite. But the match itself, I thought, was really good, and there was an added bonus after the match of the Lucha Brothers returning. So I was quite surprised by this. So I know obviously Pac can't get his visa in place to go.
He's another one who's kind of stuck where he is, isn't he?
Yeah, so, I suppose it's good that Lucha Brothers haven't just been left on the sideline, because obviously they were starting Death Triangle. So it's
Or is that
been
the heavy
nice
metal
to
band?
see. Obviously, yeah. Pac's sick on vocals. He's got Geordie accents, you can't understand what he's saying, but it's pretty sick.
Oasis get away with it.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, so I don't know. I thought that was quite good to see them return. It was obviously something that wasn't expected, and it's nice that you get to see these surprises every week on Dynamite. But it was kind of setting up an 8-man tag match, which I'm also really excited for because you've got FTR teaming up with the Young Bucks, and that's where the kind of animosity is between the two teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two teams work together on the same page, or whether maybe not so much.
Yeah, be an
And then
interesting one.
my final highlight for the show was obviously the main event promo segment, which was Jericho and Orange Cassidy, and the pair of them were just great. Le Champion, electric on the mic as always, and basically Cassidy did all his talking with his gimmick. There was he just put the microphone down, did the hands in the pocket thing. It was just everything you come to expect and love from Orange Cassidy. They had this gigantic brawl after the fact, went all over the arena and stuff, and it ended with like a bloody Orange Cassidy standing tall. And I don't think it was a planned
Blood orange, love it.
blood orange. I don't think it was a planned thing either. It looked like it was a bit of a botch, but it's these moments. We spoke about it with Becky, we spoke about it with Britt Baker, and now we've got Orange Cassidy as well, where there's moments like this that just kind of
looking badass.
Yeah,
I think
so
they're
it's
even
like
selling
hopefully
merch based on it now.
Are they? Yeah, well, great. That's what they need to do. I think it's stuff like this where you just go, fucking hell, this is cool. This guy looks cool. And the fact he wasn't really bothered about it, it's just like after the thing.
I think
What I mean?
the fact that he could stay in gimmick, especially because, like you say, it felt like a botch. I don't think they've deliberately done it, and he stayed in character to the point that he weren't even asked. It's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they were definitely the standout points for the O'Shite. So I mentioned before the Cody and Jake press conference. I was a fan of it mostly. I wasn't a fan of Arn Anderson's promo, and to be honest, Cody's promo felt a bit flat for him as well, which is a shame. But I hated the ending. So Jake Hager brought his missus with him, and for no reason, she chucks a glass of water at Cody. And it was like, just don't overproduce everything you're in. Just have it just be, you know what I mean? Like every single thing he's in, there's something. And
To
it's
be
just
fair, you give him. I think you give him 2 weeks there where it weren't overproduced. So.
Well, he's back to it. Let's just say that. But
just saying,
yeah,
looking back at the records, Carl.
It's just a shame, I think, because it just some stuff in there that doesn't need to happen. Like, don't get me wrong, Arn Anderson is a legend, and he's never been well known for his mic skills, so don't give him that much mic time. Cody is great on the mic, and there's some stuff that he says that is good, and he was on about like how the TNT title isn't finished and it's going to look even better, blah blah blah. But it just felt flat for a Cody promo. It didn't have as much emotion or like grit on, and for a week where he's finding out that the Great American Bash has been taken away from him and being used properly by NXT. I expected a little bit more. I'm not going to lie, but
yeah, no, I get that.
It was what it was. It was mostly good, but there was those negatives that I just can't shy away from. Also, the Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela promo, like angle, whatever you want to call it. Part 1 was intriguing. So this tag team had formed out of nowhere, and it was like, oh, we're going to see a part 2. Part 2 sucked. So basically, Sonny and Janela went to a gas station. Janela went in to pay for the gas, and then Sonny Kiss got jumped by some guys, and he started doing like weird wrestler moves on them and stuff. And it was meant to show how like the pair of them became tag partners, but it just looks silly. Just didn't fly with me. And I can't justify a silly angle like this on AEW while I'm taking the piss out of the fucking Viking Profit Raider Street, whatever the fuck they are. So
massive points for being fair on it, Carl, because you're not just showing a bit of favoritism there. You've pointed out silly where it's silly. I for one loved it. It was
fuck you, get the smoke. So I wasn't a fan of that. And unfortunately, the match itself wasn't much better. So off the back of this, they did have a tag team match against Colt Cabana and Brody Lee. And do you know what? It just wasn't great. I like the idea, right, that Brody Lee and the Dark Order can give Colt Cabana what he can't seem to get himself, which is wins. That makes perfect sense, and I like it. But I just don't get why it's Colt Cabana. Like,
I'll be honest, I don't get why they'd even want Colt Cabana.
Well, I don't know. I think
I might be being a bit too unfair, but you're Brody Lee, right? You're there with your thing of minions, right? I don't get why you're there looking at it going, I'm going to pick the goofy motherfucker. That's who I want in my serious Dark Order. Just, I was no offense to Colt, but he's, he that's his whole thing, isn't it? Is being a bit goofy in the ring. So I don't get why you'd want it, unless he's going to change as a character and evolve into this Dark Order bad guy thing. But so far, he just seems like a bit more of an upset Colt.
I think my view on it is they want to recruit people who are down on the luck or who've got something to prove or they can't quite make it happen themselves, and then he wants to kind of convert them to his ways. So it doesn't. It's not like it doesn't make sense. I just wish it was someone who wasn't Colt Cabana, because his gimmick and who he is, he just doesn't need this, and it just feels a bit weird.
Yeah, it is weird to see Colt in a cult.
It is Colt Cabana. That's what we're going to see.
Colt Cabana.
So yeah, that happened. We also get to see Lance Archer return, and basically after this match, he hasn't been seen since the Cody thing.
Really messed him up, didn't he?
Yeah, must have, which is weird for a Murder Hawk monster. But he returned after the match and he twatted Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela. And I don't know, I didn't like this because Jake Roberts was there, like trying to hold him back and like talk him out of it. And Jake's a fucking psychopath. So
yeah,
I get they're trying to make the fucking Lance Archer seem like even more crazy than Jake, but it just doesn't land for me. Jake is a sadistic fucking motherfucker.
Yeah, especially for what ultimately Lance was gonna do. It's like, well, yeah, Jake probably wouldn't stop you.
Exactly, like he literally beat a couple of guys. He beats everyone up on the way to on the way to the ring. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Now you're beating up other wrestlers. This is just too much.
I just think, like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It makes Archer look sillier than like menacing, if that makes sense. So I don't know. Wasn't a fan of that. Also, we get to see Brian Cage kill a guy.
Brian Cage killed a guy.
Yeah. So that was fine. It was a classic squash. It was meant to be Moxley though. So I'm not too sure how it would have turned out. But to be fair, Taz gave a really good promo after the match, which I thought was pretty decent. But it just kind of felt a bit thrown together for me. It was just kind of like it was a squash match that didn't need to happen. It should have just been like,
in all fairness, it probably was thrown together. Like, it would have been better to drop it, but I suppose they then got to try and find something to do with that time and so on like that. So they probably found it easier just to throw a squash in there. And it's let's be honest, it's always good to have a cage match on Dynamite, isn't it?
Yeah. I know.
Sorry, guys, that was a bad joke.
Terrible. I mean, you've planted the idea now where Cody's going to jump off Brian Cage's shoulders at some point. Because that's what he does.
Top of the cage.
And then, Britt Baker and Big Swole. So I was glad, I'm glad to see that she was used again and stuff like that. She was in a Perspex soundproof box. So like the Big Swole couldn't get to her, but then Big Swole just kind of climbed in and threw trash all over her. And then, yeah, I don't know. I like that they're still using her still, but this one felt a bit flat.
I was on board with it when she was in the glass box and Swole couldn't get to her. And then when it was just insanely easy, like it took all of 5 seconds to go, I'll just go over the top. And it's almost something like Britt should have probably picked up on as well. It just felt a bit like, okay. Turns out you can get at it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I was on board with the joke at first, but yeah, it just kind of landed a bit weird.
Yeah.
Did not stick the landing.
It did not stick the landing. But yeah, then the other match to call out was as the shites. Unfortunately, Hardy versus Santana. It was just a match that happened. It wasn't very memorable. I get it. He should have been fighting Sammy, and it was like a last minute thing. But Hardy wins the match, and then gets beat down afterwards by Santana and Ortiz. And then Private Party come down to make the save, and I get that it's a Hardy party, and he's like their manager kind of.
I feel like they just went with it because it rhymes.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you. That's why I'm expecting at some point to see Cabana versus Santana.
Maybe it will happen. Wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, so look, I don't want to shit all over it, but there was, unfortunately, there's quite a few negatives this week. That being said, the show as a whole, I don't think it's been as stellar as it has been the last few weeks, but for me, it was still a solid 3 out of 5. I thought there was still a lot of really good stuff that happened in there, but there was quite a few things this week where I was just a bit like, didn't really land. So for me, 3 out of 5 seemed fair.
Yeah, I'm firmly with you on that, mate. It was a good week. Wasn't the best we've seen, but given what everyone's working with at the minute, can't fault it. It was a decent week in wrestling, and I give it a 3 as well.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. So, Carl, we had Dynamite. It was a fun day for everyone. Nice Wednesday, Then everything kicks off again in Florida. More cases of the coronavirus. More concerns over people's well-being. Various people testing positive in WWE. So I mention that now because that fucked SmackDown right up. Right, we ultimately didn't get some of the matches that were planned. The notable one being AJ Styles versus Drew Gulak. Did not happen. Among others, but that was probably the most notable one. But they then obviously had to do something with that. So, and I think it worked quite well. Because at the minute, we're coming off the back of the last ride with The Undertaker. It's very clear that he's done in the ring now, unless Vince says, do you want to get back in the ring? It's very clear that do you know what I mean? Like, you've got social media filled with wrestlers saying, thank you, Taker, and it seems very conclusive that he's retired at the moment. And it seemed like the right choice they made in given the situation. So what they did this week was they had a tribute to The Undertaker. And they coupled that with showing the Boneyard match again, showing his last match again. So that was sort of the way they filled out SmackDown. So I'm not even going to add that as a match on the card. That was just a recap of the WrestleMania match. It was good to see it again. It was nice. I would normally say, it's good to offer a pay-per-view match for free, but obviously no one paid for WrestleMania, so everyone saw it for free. But nevertheless, we saw the Boneyard match again. Brilliant match, why not, right? As for the card, other than that, we had Alexa Bliss versus Dana Brooke versus Nikki Cross versus Lacey Evans, Carl. Very exciting sounding match. Fatal 4-way. And the winner will go on to face Bayley. Okay, cool. Stipulation. Love it. Surprisingly, we saw Nikki Cross take the win on that. Cool. Yeah. All really quite good. And again, as far as matches go, I'm going to give it a plus. It was a good match. Interesting results. The other match we had on the card, we had the New Day and the Lucha House Party. What? Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. I was like, and shouldn't it be versus? But no, the New Day and the Lucha House Party. I hate these things. I'm going to stress this now. I'll give this a negative, not because of the quality of the match, because they're always a mess, right? So we had New Day and Lucha House Party versus Cesaro, Nakamura, Miz and Morrison. Too many moving parts. I never like these things. It's too much. I don't mind, 3 and 3. 4 and 4 just gets a bit too fucking messy. Don't like it. We saw the good guys with New Day and Lucha House Party took the win. But ultimately, it might not have been a negative for everyone, but it was a negative for me because I don't really like it. It's too messy. And then we closed the night out with sort of Baron Corbin versus Jeff Hardy. Another negative, sadly. Jeff Hardy took the win, but it was largely beat up Baron night because he cut a promo where he was talking shit about The Undertaker, which was a bit odd, a bit in poor taste. But let's talk about the highlights, Carl. There weren't any. No, just kidding.
Now, where are you going to go with that?
No, sadly, I've only got 2. One I've mentioned already, in that it was a good shout and a good use of the time because of the difficult situation SmackDown was in to have the Boneyard match again. I enjoyed seeing it again. It was in keeping with the fact that we're paying tribute to The Undertaker. So I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I thought it was the right move to make when you're going to show something old to fill the card out. And the only other highlight I had was the fact that the Lucha House Party are getting a more prominent role in the tag team division, and they have actually got a lot of talent. They just never really showcase that well. They're just there when you want somebody to lose to the Usos. So it's nice to see them getting a more of a push, as it were. I don't know whether it's going to ultimately lead to, because they seem buddy with New Day, but I'm hoping it leads to a tag match. Well, it definitely leads to a tag match. My hopes are answered because they're all tag teams. But it leads to a tag title match at some point. It can be friendly, it can be face versus face, but I look forward to seeing that because it was a good match when they had it last week, and nice to see them with the titles and have a good run in that sense. And the Forgotten Sons are truly forgotten now, so fuck it, let's go for it. Why not? Sadly, the O'Shites are a bit more fleshed out than the highlights. So the O'Shites, again, I mentioned it initially, I'll mention it now. Let's all beat up Baron Corbin. This is something SmackDown have been doing for a while, which I always find kind of strange. Now, Baron, he cut his promo, he was the heel, he was a dick, he was showing no respect to the Undertaker. Bit of an odd move because even heels like AJ Styles were saying thank you, Taker. So fair enough. They want to book. They've always kind of booked him like an obnoxious twat. That's why we've always mentioned that. But it comes across a bit more. This is where I don't get, because you had the good guys all banding together to just take turns kicking the shit out of him at the end. Jeff took the win. He didn't. Typical Jeff. Now, for some reason, he's the guy who gets beaten up for the most, and then hopefully pulls something out of the bag. But certainly hasn't with Sheamus. But he wasn't dominant by any means through the match. But ultimately got the swanton and won. And then it was just a case of, well, let's have Matt Riddle and Braun Strowman and the like all just take turns having a go at him doing the finishes. I think Big E was in there at one point. It was weird that they were all kind of there anyway outside the ring, but even weirder that they were all just taking turns beating up Baron. It's like, it felt, and I don't mean to be a conspiracy guy, but it seemed really odd that after Baron made comments that, Riddle shouldn't be facing him, that he got such poor treatment on SmackDown. It's almost like they went, fuck you, Baron. Know your place. Could be wrong, but it was just like, right, this week, Baron, everyone's going to beat you. How about that? But yeah, I wasn't a fan. Is it just like, well, the good guys are just being bullies now? It's really weird. I don't know how you felt about it, Carl, because I know like we're not historically Baron Corbin fans. I just didn't like the booking of faces being like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of the whole show, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, this particular segment just felt a bit kind of as you've said, like fair dues. He doesn't want to thank Undertaker, okay, but to have everyone come out and just twat him when he hasn't got even anyone in his corner, like you're not really doing him many favors as a heel, because you just kind of start to feel sympathetic for him at the end.
Exactly, it's like proper mob mentality. It's like SmackDown says, "Fuck you, Baron."
Yeah.
Like, nice, thanks, guys. So, whole thing was kind of strange. Now it's ended up in the O'Shites not because so much of them. I don't know how you might disagree with this, Carl, because it really, in some senses, it should be a highlight. This is the trouble with the new format, because it's kind of both. It was Nikki taking the win, and the reason I put it in the O'Shites is because I don't think they're going to do anything with this. I think Nikki's going to ultimately go forward as fodder for Bayley and lose to Bayley. I never thought for 1 second that they were going to do anything more than that. This would be a highlight, because the end was interesting. I didn't expect Nikki to get the win. It's a nice push for her. It's nice to see her getting more prominence in the ring. She's definitely getting better in the ring. But I don't think, when I look at it realistically, she's going to beat Bayley at Extreme Rules. So because of that, I feel like all they've done is put her forward because they didn't want to make Lacey Evans or Alexa Bliss, or who was the other one in the match? The other one in the match, Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke, but even that, yeah. But it just seems like they've gone, right, yeah, you guys are okay. We're going to make her eat the loss, and I just didn't like it for that reason. But
yeah, I fucking
because it's nice to see her take the win, but you know for a fact she's just going to lose to Bayley.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know. I think you've hit the nail on the head. We'd like to be happy for it and think it was a push, but there's no way in a million years they're going to push it. So it's just pointless. Like literally, it would have been more suspenseful if they would have put Alexa in there or Lacey in there. Like if one of those would have won, then I would have been like, oh, okay, maybe there's an opportunity for one of them to dethrone it. But now that Nikki's going in, well, there's no fucking chance in hell that she's going to beat Bayley, is there? So it's pointless.
Exactly. So that was an unfortunate one for me. But again, it was a good match. So I don't want to be unfair to SmackDown. The match itself was good because I'm thinking forward with this. But I'm doing it with my next one as well. So next one, Carl. My last O'Shite of the night was where at some point, I can't remember what point in the night it was, sadly now, because I've slept. But it's confirmed that we're having a swampy swamp match with Braun Strowman and Bray, because apparently they're going back to the roots, which was a swamp. Okay. The reason this is in me O'Shites, because I'm all a fan of Bray being back and I'm feuding with Braun. I wanted to see this carry on. The reason it's in me O'Shites, is not necessarily because of SmackDown, and then this is where I'm potentially being a bit unfair because I don't think this bit was confirmed on SmackDown, but this match is a non-title match, and I don't know why, and it kind of bugs me that. Kind of bugs me that it's a non-title match. I think it was after the fact that I learned that, so it's probably not fair to call it an no-shy for SmackDown. But the title's not going to be online for this match. Why?
That's just
that makes
stupid.
Braun look like a fucking wuss. That makes Braun look like he's going to go, well, I'm probably going to fucking lose this, so I'm not putting the belt on the line.
Yeah, that is stupid as fuck.
It's strange booking.
For me, I was disappointed with this because I assumed, do you know what, it's going to set up Bray for another loss. And then he's going to have to come back as the Fiend. Like, we know once Bray comes back as the Fiend, then, you know, fucking hell, Bray's in trouble. No, Braun's in trouble. Someone's in trouble, right? But the fact that they've gone with, okay, he's going to face Bray Wyatt, and now he's going to face the fucking, you know, swamp Bray Wyatt. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, okay, shit, this is actually going to be a threat for Braun. I wasn't. But now that the title's not on the line, then who knows? I guess maybe he will have.
I think they might give Bray the win, but then I don't know how you write that from there. Does Bray then go, well, I want the title match I deserve, or does Braun go, no, I'm not having that loss. I want to face the Fiend. I want to prove once and for all. I don't know where they're going to go with it. If he does take the win, it made more sense really from a story point of view to have Bray lose as the swampy swamp guy, so that he could then go, right, it's going to have to be the Fiend, and I've been trying not to be the Fiend. I've been trying to let the Fiend leave you alone, but I can't, or something like that. It would have worked for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And that could still be the case. He could still take the loss. I just don't get why the sudden, like, well, nah, it's not going to be a title match. Like, okay.
No, sure. Seems mental. Absolutely mental.
Very mental. But I do look forward to, you know, after Extreme Rules and after we've had that match, I think it's Braun versus Husky Harris next.
Well, you know, we did say there was rumors of Nexus coming back. You know, Husky was a former member of Nexus. You never know.
He's Bray's gone full Hardy now. He'll be any era appropriate gimmick from the past.
Bray's gone full Hardy. Whoa, put it away.
He loves a good swamp match, maybe a little too much. But that was SmackDown overall, and I'm going to be slightly generous here, Carl, and I'm going to give it a 2. And I would give it a 1, but I want to be slightly generous to the fact that they were suddenly slapped with a big problem, and the card ended up shorter. You could have come out of the Gulak AJ match and maybe give it more because of that, and because certain things we didn't get to see. I'm going to let it rest on the legacy of the Boneyard match and Undertaker himself and give it a 2 on that basis. But there really wasn't much here. I'm just trying to be fair to it.
I have no compassion for anybody, and for me this was a 1, and it's lucky to get a 1. It was a piece of shit of a show, and I get it. There was issues, there was problems, blah blah blah, but fuck me, like it was awful. I was not a fan of it in the slightest. They can't get any higher than a 1 for me. I don't know, not a fan.
No, that totally understand. That's what it's all about, Carl. You know, we're not always going to agree, but I'm the one who does the editing, so it'll always look like we do.
Yes, obviously.
But yeah, so that was SmackDown this week, and you know, I don't know. We'll see what happens going forward, because I don't know if this Impact is going to carry on. I mean, certainly Raw hasn't happened yet.
Well, exactly. So we have no idea what has happened to that show.
But the Extreme Rules card looks like it's building up nicely. We've got a few good matches on there, so could potentially be quite a good pay-per-view overall, really.
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully, anyway. And obviously, we've got, you know, this week's Dynamite and this week's NXT is replaced by, you know, Fyter Fest and the Great American Bash, respectively. And then we have the same the following week. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting week, I think, ahead for next week.
Do you ever, not to again try and sort of play who did it first with AEW and WWE, but do you ever recall WWE doing that before AEW, where they went, we're going to have our normal weekly show, but we're going to make it something special?
No.
Because I like the way the AEW have done that. They've gone, well, we're going to put it on when Dynamite's normally on, but this is Fyter Fest or whichever. It gives it like a special bit of gravitas on your normal weekly show rather than it being a specific pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And now WWE are doing it, and because they've done it, that's what takeover in your house essentially was, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just feels like they've proper jumped on the bandwagon there, and I'm
Oh,
confident
100%.
they've not done that before.
Like, I think as well, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Blood and Guts, when they were going to do that, I don't think that was a pay-per-view as such. It was just going to be a Dynamite replacement. So,
Yeah, I think it was.
they've definitely had plans to do these things for quite a while. But yeah, WWE have just been ridiculous, I
because
think.
they've been doing it for ages. If you look at it, like AEW, they done the Jericho Cruise
Yeah.
was that was Dynamite on a boat. Fair enough. They did what was that one? It was all very Bash at the Beach was that was a normal weekly Dynamite rebranded, given a bit of special attention that particular week. They're not frightened to do it. They've done it with a few different. I don't want to call them pay-per-views because they're not, but they've done it with a few different brand names. And yeah, it's just odd that WWE are jumping on it now as well. And it's like, I'm confident you've not done this before, WWE. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm confident I've not seen this before.
They are just shit scared, I think, and they've been losing the ratings for ages now, and even recently, I think it was the Sasha Banks one. I think we saw some controversy come out of that where the Sasha segment drew higher than the Chris Jericho segment. So it was like, oh, okay, and then Jericho even came out and defended himself, saying, "Well, in the demographics that count, we absolutely trounced you." But you can see that the competition is there. Like the people on NXT want to beat AEW, and the people on AEW want to beat NXT. So, it's unfortunately it's starting to get a bit dirty now. But I mean,
this is where though the suggestion of the Wednesday Night Wars was always just like a bit of a throwaway. Yeah, it's not going to be like a proper war, but it is starting to heat up. They're starting to actually be quite competitive with one another. Don't like people. WWE marks are probably worse for it. All due respect to them, but WWE marks are probably the worst when it comes to like being really defensive as well. And it's like, NXT is just a better show. And it's like, yeah, but bear in mind, like, you guys have like, you've had to bring in like Sasha Banks and Bailey and Charlotte and everything over the last few weeks. Finn Balor's regularly on there now, all big names to keep the attention on NXT, to keep the ratings high. So, they're having to respond to the popularity of AEW, and you can't. There's no two ways about that. And even when you say it's like, oh yeah, but AEW's barely beating a third-rate show. It's like, yeah, but AEW's a brand new show. Like, even NXT being the third-rate show of WWE was still more established than AEW, so it's still a very massive thing for them.
And to be fair as well, I'm gonna put me my fanboy hat aside. I am surprised that AEW isn't growing more than it has. Like, it's still impressive that they're beating NXT mostly like every week, but NXT for me is shite, and I don't mean that like.
No, you're like comparatively, they should be blowing them out the water by now.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So fair play to NXT because they're hanging in there something, and I know they've got the experience and they've got more years behind them, more of a brand, and I get that. But you compare the two shows, and it does baffle me that NXT is so close. Really, so I don't know whether that's on AEW for not doing better or for NXT for overperforming.
I think personally, if WWE didn't have the ability to react, and I'm not down on them for it, because you've got the ability and the star power there. If they didn't have the ability to react to the ratings and go, right, well, we're gonna bring over In Your House because that'll get the nostalgia going, or we're gonna bring Charlotte on so people will tune in to see what's going on there because we've got some main roster talent and so on. They can react and they can pull stunts like that. That's fine, and I would do the same if I was running a business and I wanted to be competitive. But I think had they not have had that ability, I think this would be a done and dusted thing by now.
Yeah, good point actually.
And that's fair. It's just business, and they are reactive, and they're not in. Luckily, they're not in that position. But I think had they not have had the star power to compete with, and it was NXT on its own, they probably would be massively struggling by now.
Yeah.
But overall, NXT is WWE brand, and if they want to bring over stars from Raw and SmackDown, they fucking can, and they will.
True that.
And by the way, we are notably in favour of AEW more so. Lately, we've mentioned that we are AEW fanboys. We're not stupid. We know that they still don't compete with SmackDown and Raw for the most. SmackDown was abysmal this week, so they definitely do. But generally, we know they're not one of the big daddies yet. We know they're not going to compete with their numbers. We're not stupid. But that's why it is the comparison for Wednesday night. That's probably why, a Dynamite haven't put themselves on Monday, or it might be down to TNT controlling the program slot. Like, but that's probably why they are on Wednesday rather than Monday or Friday. In all fairness.
Yeah.
But yeah, that, I think other than that little rant at the end, that is this week in wrestling. And that is this week for A to the K's WrestleTalk podcast. So we hope you've all enjoyed.
Emotional. It's been emotional.
I know it's been emotional for you, Carl. That was 35%. The fuck were you thinking?
I know. I'm not going to sleep.
I'm only kidding. I'm
going to cry myself to hopefully sleep.
So as mentioned, obviously when we put everything up, I will put a link to the quiz because it was not my quiz. So all fairness to, I'll have to remember where I got it from. But all fairness to them, I'll put that on there, and you can, if you obviously avoid the bit where they give all the answers out, have a go with the quiz. It's good fun, and there'll be more quizzes to come, and there'll be more from us on probably Sunday, maybe Monday.
Maybe Thursday at this rate.
Who knows? Who knows?
One day in the future.
But we'll see you all next week, guys.
Yeah, take it easy. This week's episode is brought to you by floriday.co.uk, where you can get all the latest news about Florida, Disney, and Universal Studios, as well as valuable tips and touring plans to get the most out of your Florida holiday. That's floriday.co.uk, the sunshine state of mind.
Well, hello, Carl and Anthony. Hey, it's the hardcore legend Mick Foley saying hello. What a beautiful afternoon it is. Wow, gorgeous May afternoon. There's a view of the river at the Foley compound. Just want to say hello to you guys and let you know that I'm looking forward to listening to you on A to the K, the podcast. I am not yet exposed to much in the world of podcasting, but I think I'm going to start. I hear great things about you guys. I appreciate you being fans. I'm going to go out on a limb and just guess that you guys are big wrestling fans. So I'm going to thank you for your support over the years. Have a nice day.